Hey everyone, welcome back. So today, we're unpacking this truly profound sociological observation about the invisible engine that's essentially running our entire modern world. It's kind of crazy because it's so ubiquitous, we literally barely even notice it anymore. Yet it dictates almost everything we do. We're going to break down exactly how you can reclaim your own agency using two concepts that honestly, they are severely misunderstood.
Okay, let's dive right into this. I want you to really think about something for a second. What exactly is the world selling you today? Think about the messages you get the literal minute you wake up and grab your phone. You turn on the news, you're scrolling through finance channels, watching health programs, maybe even reading parenting books. What is that underlying theme you're constantly consuming? It's always something like, buy this house right now or prices are going to go up forever, or invest immediately or you're going to have zero retirement, or even get your kid a tutor or they're going to fall behind.
Well, the answer to that question is fear. The entire world, almost all the information we consume daily, orbits around this one single central axis, making you afraid. And why is that? Because fear is absolutely, hands down, the most effective sales engine ever created in human history. Think about it. When you're afraid, you buy insurance, you buy supplements, subscriptions, you even buy into political stances. Your fear is literally someone else's revenue. But on a much deeper level, your fear creates compliance. It makes you super easy to guide, and it just stops independent thought dead in its tracks. In this economy, your fear is someone else's power.
Section 1. The Invisible Engine. The Fear Economy and the Biological Trap.
So here's the thing, our brains simply haven't updated to modern times. Back in the day, early humans needed fear just to survive, right? Like we needed to be absolutely terrified of literal tigers, of the dark, of unknown strangers. That fear is what kept our ancestors alive. But today, well, the literal tigers are gone, yet our physical response to stress remains exactly the same. We react to these modern stressors, an angry boss, a sudden drop in the stock market, internet trolls, or just our kids bringing home bad grades with the exact same massive, overwhelming spikes of adrenaline and cortisol as if we were staring down a wild predator. We are essentially trapped in this chronic state of fight or flight.
And this brilliantly illustrates the massive, absolute toll this takes on us. Chronic fear completely wrecks our physical health. It tanks our immunity, ruins our sleep, messes with our digestion, and totally destabilizes our emotions. But the deeper psychological side effect is honestly even more alarming. Living in chronic fear fundamentally dies our entire worldview. We become hyper-defensive, really short-sighted. We start looking at every single stranger as a potential threat, and every minor change as a potential disaster. We end up missing out on so many opportunities simply because we are way too busy guarding ourselves.
Which brings us to what we call the control trap. So why do we stay in this terrible state? Well, because worrying actually gives us this highly addictive illusion of control. When we worry, our brain basically tricks us into thinking, hey, I am actively managing this problem. We'd rather feel this fake, false sense of control than accept the genuinely terrifying reality that, well, we just can't control everything. But experimental psychology is incredibly clear on this. Worrying has absolutely zero impact on the actual outcome of negative events. Seriously, worrying 10,000 times gives you the exact same result as not worrying at all. It gives you zero benefits and purely negative impacts on your life.
Section 2. The Reveal. Reframing Compassion and Fearlessness.
Now, what's really interesting here is how completely we misinterpret this concept today. We seriously need to reclaim the word compassion from this modern realm of toxic positivity. Most people hear the word compassion and instantly think of, being a soft pushover or having zero boundaries. But the original Sanskrit roots of the word tell a completely different story. It combines Maitri, which is the ability to give happiness, and Karuna, the ability to reduce suffering. When you put those together, they form a super active, highly powerful energy. So it's not about being weak at all. It's actually about possessing an active, revolutionary inner strength that, frankly, doesn't even need to loudly prove itself.
And you know what? Compassion is tied directly to fearlessness. Now, fearlessness is not the absence of fear. That is a total myth. Fearlessness is simply the state of not being ruled by that fear. Honestly, compassion and fearlessness are just two sides of the very same coin. You still feel the fear, you absolutely acknowledge that crazy physiological response happening in your body, but you just outright refuse to let it dictate your actions or paint your worldview.
To really see this in action at the absolute highest stakes, check out this quote from the Dalai Lama, speaking about his decades in exile driven by the Chinese government. He says, "They are my biggest teachers. Without them, I couldn't practice true compassion."
I mean, wow. This perfectly demonstrates what the source material points out. Compassion is an unbreakable inner strength. It's the profound ability to not be consumed by hatred, even when you're literally displaced from your home. It doesn't rely on these aggressive counterattacks to prove how powerful it is. It stands completely, 100% on its own.
Section 3. The clarification, myth-busting, and justice. Okay, let's tackle myth number 1. The idea that compassion makes you a pushover. The myth basically says that being compassionate means letting people just walk all over you and take advantage. But the reality is actually quite the opposite. True compassion allows for incredibly firm boundaries. It just achieves them without carrying around this heavy, exhausting burden of hate. For example, you can totally fire an underperforming employee, but you can do it respectfully, right? With fair compensation and without humiliating them. Or you can leave a toxic relationship without spending all your precious energy speaking ill of that person. The outcome is absolute, it's firm, but your motive remains entirely clean.
Then we have myth number 2, which is this modern trap of self-love first. It's this pervasive idea that I must prioritize my own comfort above everything, and therefore I have a total license to just ignore everybody else. So the crucial point here is that true self-love isn't just self-centeredness. Real self-love simply means not harshly judging yourself, and it is deeply, inextricably interconnected with compassion for others. A truly fulfilled, self-loving person naturally extends that softness outward, basically because their cup is already full. If someone claims to love themselves but is just ice cold to everyone else, yeah, that's not self-love, that is just self-absorption.
And finally, myth number 3, compassion means you'll get bullied. People tend to think compassion makes you kind of dull, like you're an easy mark for manipulators. But in reality, stepping out of that defensive, anxious fear state sharpens your perception immensely. You suddenly see things so clearly, and manipulators absolutely dread this. Why? Well, because a manipulator is expecting one of 2 reactions from you, either aggressive anger or fearful submission. When you give them neither, and instead just present a super clear, calm refusal that is completely free of fear, you disarm them entirely. I mean, they literally have no playbook for that.
And hey, this isn't just a nice theory. History is absolutely full of anchors where compassion was used as a brilliant, highly effective political strategy. Think about Mahatma Gandhi achieving independence entirely through nonviolence, or Martin Luther King Jr. advancing civil rights through a dream of unity rather than a nightmare of division, or Nelson Mandela, who actively chose truth and reconciliation over bloody revenge. The point is, compassion isn't about condoning evil. You can absolutely take firm legal or social action against something wrong, but doing so without hatred, that is what actually breaks the cycle, making sure that today's revolutionaries don't just turn into tomorrow's tyrants.
Section 4. The action. From micro practices to macro leadership.
So how do we actually do this? Here are 3 real, practical steps for fearlessness pulled straight from the source material. Step 1. Identify the fear source. Whenever you feel that familiar tightness in your chest, just pause and ask yourself, what am I actually afraid of right now? Often, it's something that probably won't even happen, or it's something totally in the past. Just identifying it pulls it right out of the shadows and literally cuts its power in half. Step 2. Breathe. When fear hits, your breathing gets super shallow. So take 3 deep breaths. Inhale for 4 counts, exhale for 6. Making that exhale longer actually triggers your parasympathetic nervous system, which forcefully pulls your physical body right out of fight or flight mode. And step 3, do 1 unexpected good deed every single day. Give up your seat on the bus, send a really kind message to a friend. Every single time you make a choice that is not driven by fear, you are actively building up that fearless muscle.
Let's move to the workplace and see how this builds into the professional world. Look at this comparison between different leadership styles. Fear leadership is totally driven by this anxious mandate of don't make mistakes. What does that do? It creates a super defensive team. It completely suppresses innovation, and ultimately, all your best talent just leaves. On the flip side, compassion leadership is driven by asking, hey, how can we improve? It builds this incredibly supportive dynamic where people actually trust each other. Innovation thrives, and your absolute best talent wants to stay. The data firmly proves it. Compassion isn't just a nice-to-have human trait. It is a vastly superior, long-term business strategy. But, of course, it requires the actual courage to not use fear as a tool to control people.
Section 5. The conclusion. A radical choice. 1 million. Now that is a wildly powerful number.
The text notes that when just 100 compassionate people choose not to operate on fear, they can completely change the dynamic of a local community. Bring that up to 1,000 compassionate people, you can shift the culture of an entire industry. But 1 million compassionate, absolutely fearless people, they can completely twist an era and break the global fear cycle. Choosing compassion in a fear-based economy isn't just some light personal development exercise. It is a profound, revolutionary action that genuinely reshapes the energy all around us.
So, I want to leave you with a pretty provocative thought to reflect on today. Think back on the decisions you've made over the past week. How many of them were subtly pushed by fear, and how many were driven by genuine compassion? If your absolute worst fears actually came true, would they truly destroy you, or would you honestly just adapt and survive? The very next time you feel that familiar, horrible spike of anxiety, I challenge you to just pause for 3 seconds and ask yourself, can I choose not to be ruled by this fear? The answer to that question might just change your life. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.